Welcome to chapter 23 of the book of Leviticus. The holidays of the Lord. Biblical holidays. There are 9 holidays mentioned in the Bible in the Old Testament. 7 of them are here in this chapter. Now, interestingly, as we go through here, if you wanted more information, like I did, and you would go to Wikipedia, they have all these other holidays, just tons of holidays, and not a single place that I could see anywhere in Wikipedia article was there a reference to a biblical passage. I mean, it didn't say Leviticus 23:1, nothing. And then I went to Chabad. Chabad, C-H-A-B-A-D, is Jewish site that supposedly has all this information, but it, again, didn't even have any biblical references. So the Jews basically have left the Bible and come up with all of their own ideas of what holidays should be. So I would warn you on accepting whatever they say as really not of the Lord. It's something that they have invented. And the ones that the Lord set up, one of them, I couldn't even find anything about it, which to me is just a disastrous, terrible situation when you're expecting people to be holding up what their forefathers and fathers were teaching and the God was teaching them. But yet, no, it wasn't the case. Now, before I get too excited about my disappointment in finding no information about it, we'll go into these chapters, and in this chapter it begins, and the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, as he has in so many other places in this book, speak to the sons of Israel in the imperative. So again, this is coming from Mount Sinai area through Moses to the people. And you shall say to them, the holiday, this just has ERT, the holidays, generally they were feasts. They had something to do with eating. The holidays are the feasts of the Lord. I could take that out, though. I just put holiday. The holidays of the Lord, holy days. People don't like me using holiday because they think that that's something non-biblical, but actually it's a holy day. But I think holy day is the best word for these days of the Lord, which you shall call them holy convocations. This is what they are actually, are holy convocations. Set apart times for this. These are my ERT, my holidays. 6 days you shall do work, but the 7th day is a Sabbath rest. So that's the first, actually, I don't consider it's a holiday, but it's not in the same as the other holidays, so I didn't add that. If you had to add that, then it would be 10 days. Feast days, but it's really not necessarily a feast day. The Sabbath, it's a holy convocation to the Lord. All work you shall not do. It is a savatah. That's a word that was only for the Jews. It doesn't appear before when the Jews left with Moses. It's a Sabbath. Savatah to the Lord in all your house. Now, these are the holiday feasts to the Lord, holy convocations, which you shall call them in their seasons, times. The first one here is holiday of Passover and unleavened breads. In the first month, proto-mini, for proto, a proton, on the 14th day of the month. So we are given this date of the month, the first month, the 14th of the day. Now, try to find that in Wikipedia or Chabad. But that might be, but they didn't say it was in 23:5. Go look in 23:5. Now, between the evenings is a Passover to the Lord. So that's on the 14th. And on the 15th day of this month is a holiday feast of unleavened breads to the Lord. Now, do they separate it and make it something special and different? I couldn't find it. If they do, I don't know what it would be called. It seems like they pull it all together as one big holiday and make it into one day is the first day and then the next and so forth, but there's a definite separation between these by God, and I think we should note that this one's the next day. The 15th day is a holiday feast of unleavened breads to the Lord. 7 days you shall eat unleavened breads. And we've went through this all earlier about what these different things are. But the unleavened breads and how they relate to when they left Egypt, which was only 2 years before this. And the first day will be a holy convocation to you. And then I put all this stuff here in the parentheses. I changed it to all servile work you shall not do. So I'm changing that every place where that structure is. And you shall bring a whole burnt offering to the Lord 7 days. Now, I don't think everybody brings them. The priests to the tabernacle, I'm guessing. And the 7th day will be a holy convocation to you. You shall not do any servile work. So the first and the last, the 7th day. That was the first, second, that's the second feast that's mentioned. Now the third, the holiday of the first fruits. I couldn't find anything in that in Wikipedia or Shabbat. They have all these other ones, and they don't set it out as something really special like God does in 23:9. Do they not read the Bible? I don't understand. I just don't understand it. And the holiday of first fruits. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to the sons of Israel, and you shall say to them, whenever you should enter into the land which I give to you, which they haven't yet done, and should harvest its harvest, even you shall bring the sheaf, first fruit of your harvest, to the priest. So that's basically, there's no date mentioned, any month. It's the first harvest when you do it. And he shall offer, the priest shall offer the sheaf before the Lord, accepted for you. And on the next day of the first of the Sabbaths, the priest shall offer it. And you shall offer on the day in whichever you should bring the sheaf, a sheep unblemished of a year old for a whole burnt offering to the Lord. Of course, why would they bring it up now and do anything? Because they don't have any sacrifices, no temple, no nothing. All they have is memory. And here, this is what they're supposed to do for the future, these people who here are hearing it for the first time. And with its sacrifice, 2/10 of fine flour. Dio is duo. We have a duo, 2. And decata, deca, decade, has something to do with 10. 2/10 of fine flour, being prepared in eleo, olive oil, a sacrifice to the Lord for a scent. Osmotic is something that smells good, or it has smell, of pleasant aroma to Kyrio, and its libation a drink to the fourth of the hine of wine, vino, and bread and new green parched wheat you shall not eat until this same day, until whenever you should offer the gifts to your God. An eternal law unto your generations in every dwelling of yours. If you're Jewish, do you know this law? What is it called? Let me know if I'm missing something here. It's an eternal law for your generations. Of course, I don't know if the generations today, if they do any of this, but anyway, the next one is called Pentecost because it's 50 days. And this would be, let's see, the 1, 2, 3, the fourth one mentioned. Pentecost. And you shall count out to yourselves from the next day of the Sabbath, from the day of whichever you should bring the sheaf of the increase offering, 7 entire periods of 7, 49 days. And that is that starts right after the first fruits, which is, it doesn't give a day, and neither does this, except it just says it's 49 days, no date of any month in particular. Until the next day of the last period of 7, you shall count out 50 days. And you shall bring a new sacrifice offering. That's why it's called Pentecost. Pentekonta, there it is. And you shall count arithmesete, the verb arithmetic comes from that. Eschates, last, eschatology, all these derivative words. You shall bring a new sacrifice offering to the Lord. From your houses you shall bring breads, an increase offering. They shall be 2 breads from out of 2 tenths of fine flour, baked being leaven, of the first fruit to the Lord. No leaven in them. No, they don't rise or flat breads. And you shall bring with the bread 7 unblemished lambs of a year old, and 1 calf from out of the herd, and 2 unblemished rams. Again, all these unblemished as we went through the last chapter. And Christ is the unblemished sacrifice for us, accepted for our atonement. And they shall be a whole burnt offering to the Lord, and their sacrifice offerings and their libations, a sacrifice and a pleasant aroma to the Lord, all in the Pentecost. And they shall offer a young he-goat from out of the goats, 1 for a sin offering, and 2 lambs of a year old for a sacrifice of deliverance offering, with the breads of the first produce. I just talked to a young man from a local church and invited me to come and said they're going to have this Messianic Jew come and explain how all this applies to today. Well, how it applies today, it doesn't apply to today. It applies to something they haven't done for thousands of years. And why don't they bring that up? Say, well, we haven't done this for 2,000 years, and it's a disaster. Our country is a disaster. And I'm getting off of the subject here. Sorry. And the priest shall place them with the breads of the first fruit increase offering before the Lord, with the 2 lambs. They shall be holy to the Lord. To the priest bringing them, to him it will be. So, of course, they don't do any of this anymore. And you shall call this day a convocation. It shall be holy to you, separated. And again, all servile work you shall not do on it. It is an eternal law, another eternal law unto your generations in all your house. And whenever you shall harvest the harvest of your land, you shall not complete the remainder of the harvest. Now, this is a parenthetical part, going back to when they did do the harvest. They're not to complete the whole field, and the fall-away portions of your harvest you shall not collect together. To the poor and to the foreigner you shall leave them. I am the Lord your God. And there probably should be a dash here, and then to the poor and to the foreigner you shall leave them, and probably no, let me put so I can remember to change that. Oh boy, almost full of the, how come this almost full? X. Oh, I got the wrong keyboard here. X. You shall leave them. I'm going to put this on hold and save this file. The next, was it the 5th? 1, 2, 3, 4, yeah. The 5th holiday in the Bible. And the Lord's this memorial of trumpets. Shofar, I'm sorry, it's not shofar. That's another thing they got wrong, the Jews have. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to the sons of Israel, saying, again the same way, the 7th month, now we're told that this is the 7th month, day 1 of the month, 7-1, will be to you a rest, a memorial of salpingon, trumpets. A trumpet is a metal horn. They're metal and they're real long, opened up, and they blew them. And it wasn't a shofar, which they make it today, show a guy blowing a ram's horn, which is not a ram's horn. It's a trumpet. And so, again, they get that one wrong today. I don't understand them. It's a holy convocation to the Lord. You shall not do any servile work again, and you shall bring a whole burnt offering to the Lord. Now there should be a break here with another Day of Atonement there. I'll change that in the next edition. The Day of Atonement, which if you want to add that as a feast, it's really a day, but it's that would make another 10, 11 of them with the Sabbath and the Day of Atonement. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, also on the 10th of the 7th month. Now we are given, this is 7:10. 7:1 was trumpets, and 7:10 is a Day of Atonement, and then later we'll get into the Sukkot, the tents, and that's 7:15. So 3 of them in the 7th month is a day of making an atonement. It will be a holy convocation to you, and you shall humble your souls and shall bring a whole burnt offering to the Lord. And this is the day that the high priest goes into the Holy of Holies. It's called Yom Kippur. And the trumpets before was Rosh Hashanah, and Passover was Pesach, and Pentecost was Shavuot. All work you shall not do in it in this day, for this is to you a day of making an atonement, to atone for you before the Lord your God. And now this atonement doesn't appear in the New Testament. Only Christ is the alaskome, the one atoning. No priesthood. Every soul who shall not be humbled in it in this day shall be utterly destroyed from out of its people. Now I think pretty sure the Jews observe Yom Kippur. And every soul which shall do work in it in this day, that soul shall be destroyed from out of its people. All work you shall not do, it's an eternal law again, unto your generations in all your houses. A Sabbath of Sabbaths it will be to you, a special day, and you shall humble your souls. From the 9th of the month, from evening to evening, you shall observe the Sabbath of your Sabbath. So the 9th and the 10th, evening to evening. Now the next one is a holiday of tents called Sukkot. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, speak to the sons of Israel, saying, the 15th of the 7th month, this is a holiday of tents for 7 days to the Lord. And the first day shall be a holy convocation to you. All servile work you shall not do. 7 days you shall bring the whole burnt offerings to the Lord. And the 8th will be a holy convocation to you, and you shall bring a whole burnt offering to the Lord. Of course, they don't any longer, so they just put tents outside of the synagogues. I went to one with a Jewish Israeli friend years ago, and they were all sitting outside and had some type of awning over them when they were outside. It is a holiday recess. You shall not all servile work you shall not do. These are holiday feasts to the Lord, which you shall call them holy convocations, so as to bring a yield offering to the Lord, whole burnt offerings and their sacrifices and libations, the drinks, or wine, and the thing according to day by day, besides the Sabbaths of the Lord, and besides your gifts, and besides all your vows, and besides all your voluntary offerings, whichever you should give to the Lord. And on the 15th day of the 7th month, whenever you should complete gathering the produce of the land, you shall solemnize a holiday to the Lord for 7 days. On the first day a rest, and on the 8th day a rest. You shall take to yourself on the first day a beautiful fruit of the tree, and palm branches of palm trees, and that's where they make these tents, and tender branches of the bushy tree, which is what the Jews brought to Jerusalem when Christ entered into Jerusalem and laid him in front of the donkey when it went in, and willows, and tender branches of the chaste tree from out of a rushing stream in the wilderness there. And you shall be glad before the Lord your God 7 days, and you shall solemnize it, the holiday to the Lord, 7 days of the year, an eternal law unto your generations. This is still tense. In the 7th month you shall solemnize it a holiday. In tents you shall dwell for 7 days. All the native born in Israel shall dwell in tents, that your generation should see that intense, I settled the sons of Israel in my leading them from out of the land of Egypt, which they were in at this time, when he's writing this. I am the Lord your God. And Moses told the holidays of the Lord to the sons of Israel. Now there's two more holidays that I see. I don't think the Jews see them, but I see them. One is called Purim. Well, they do accept Purim. That's mentioned in Esther 9:22-32. You can read all about Purim, when they celebrated the Jews being delivered from the clutches of Haman, who wanted to destroy the Jewish race, and they end up sending gifts to each other, so forth. Now, the Jews do observe Purim. And the next one is the rededication, and that's in Nehemiah 12:27-47. Long era. This beautiful. I highly recommend going to Nehemiah 12:27. Seeing when this is the most beautiful enactment of any of the holidays and the feasts that the Jews did. They all came in to the temple area and separated, and all kinds of wonderful things. It was beautiful. That was the rededication of the temple, and Jerusalem, I believe, also, that when they were taken to Babylon for 70 years and they came back, Ezra and Nehemiah, that they rebuilt the city. And when they did that, all these people came in for this rededication period, and it goes into detail, and it's beautiful. Now, what do the Jews do? They don't even mention this. They go and they find something that's in the Apocrypha, which they don't believe is Scripture, so they go to the non-Scripture to find another holiday, this holiday that they call Hanukkah, which is from this cleansing of the temple that was destroyed again by Antiochus Epiphanes, and Judas Maccabeus fought against them and defeated the Seleucid empire of the Greek generals that were left over from Alexander, and cleansed the tent. But that's nothing to do with the rededication. That's just something that the Jews later made. This is and that was 165 years before Christ. So it's not biblical. Can't possibly be biblical. Hanukkah is not biblical. It is something made up by the Jews for whatever reason. They decided to make that whole thing up. Jesus, it says, went to the Feast of the Dedication. In the New Testament, it mentions the Feast of the Dedication, the rededication, and that is the one for Nehemiah. But nobody teaches that because everybody listens to what the Jews teach wrongly, and think that Hanukkah's got something to do with the rededication that Jesus went to. And I don't see this unless I'm wrong. But that is the other feast. So again, the feasts are biblical feasts. Or we'll show, if you want to call Sabbath, it would be one: Passover, unleavened bread, first fruits, Pentecost, trumpets, the Day of Atonement, tents, Purim, and the rededication. Chapter 24, a memorial of breads, and we'll find out what this is all about with the breads that God has set up and wants to be set up for him to the people, and given charge through Moses. Again, hope you'll join us in chapter 24. Until then, God bless.